Alright, let's get to it. For N'Zoth, you're going to want 2 tanks, 4 healers, and then a mix of DPS, probably leaning a little bit towards the range. Okay. And the big thing that you're going to end up wanting on this is actually 10 immunities, and I'll talk about that. There's a little bit of differences in how the strats have evolved with corruption moving. There's a lot of changes that have happened since the earlier guides came out, and you kind of have to adjust on that on the fly depending on where you're at with your prog. So, start of this video is going to be a lot about the planning because this fight is a tremendous fight in the sense that you have to plan and be consistent, and the more you do that, the shorter your prog time on it will be. My dog is licking my foot, I'm sorry. So first thing I want to talk about is your immunities. You're going to need 10 immunities. 5 people are going to need to soak each one of those Thought Harvester casts. That's something that's actually going to be shown in part 2 of this guide, but I wanted to talk about it now. So let's jump right into our strat document. I've seen amazing spreadsheet ones as well. Go out there, there's plenty of resources on CompWow that'll help you get something that fits your raid group. So for us, we added timelines, and actually, while we look at this, I want to bring up, I drew out how we have marked the room, and I would highly recommend this. So let's look at what all of these marks mean. Green is where we start. You can always start on the east side of the room, which is weird because when you respawn, you're actually going to respawn on the north side. So I'm going to start here at green. Your first 2 basher tentacles are going to spawn here, and then there's going to be a group that goes along the north side, and there's going to be a group that goes along the south side. And this is just going to flow better for green. So the way that the fight kind of flows, start on green, you do your thing. You stack on yellow for your first N'Zoth burn, then you come back around north and south. You stack on diamond for your second N'Zoth burn, so that's going to be your transition into phase 2. You're going to drop your first anguish down here in the south on blue. You're going to move around this way. You're going to in phase 2, you're going to dodge your last set of eye beams around skull, and then the secret phase gateway is going to be on X. You're going to come out of that, drop your first anguish here, and then move here this way and finish the fight somewhere in this area. So this is the marking that we do. All these marks are kind of north, south, east, west, and they're going to help you, I think, the most with the consistency. This is the marking that I would recommend. So that's that. The assignments in phase 1, the main thing you want is you want the groups that are going north, south. There's 2 big assignments in phase 1. There's the groups that are going north and south on the basher tentacles prior to any Psychus phase, and then there's your actual Psychus group. Okay, so right here on this slide, we're talking about the actual groups that are going around. We did end up changing this slightly. You'll see that on this slide they're equal. We did end up moving one of our hunters that was staying upstairs the whole time in phase 1. He was always on the side with the tank that was going down for the next Psychus. So for the first half, he was with the Psychus 1 basher groups, and for the second one, he was with the Psychus 2 basher group. Hopefully that makes sense. This is Psychus Realm 1. So you see we have Pam's the Blood DK tank. We have 1 mage down there. We only had 2 mages. We ended up assigning out. We had a lot of trouble with this on our first and second night. We ended up diagramming out the CC and the kill targets for everybody in the living in the neuron assignments for the living realm, the top realm, during each Psychus. Right. We drew up the paths, and we're talking about after the first burn, the next Psychus along, and then the assignments for the second one. The second set for the mind grasp, paranoia, and all that good stuff. So this now, the other thing, this is the timeline we have for phase 2 basically. And the one thing I did want to point out here is immunities. There are some groups now that do group soaks. They don't really bother with immunities too much. Make sure that you assign out your necks. You want 2 necks per burn in phase 1, and then there's a couple more timings. I'll talk about that when we're looking at the video. Really strong classes for the immunity soaks are mages, paladins, hunters, rogues maybe as well. But the way it works is if you are able to pop your immunity at the time that the cast goes off, and then you overlap it with the anguish that on a lot of them overlaps, you don't actually get the anguish if you still have your immunity. So mages, paladins can for sure do it. I think hunters can as well, and rogues maybe as well. Demon hunters cannot. So they won't get the anguish, which means you have fewer puddles to dodge when you're dropping it and moving away from it, which ends up being huge. Anguish positionings, detailed anguish assignments for where you're supposed to stand for each one. The secret phase, which is a joke, but you still need to have assignments for who's doing what where, and the final phase. Okay? So this is the planned document, and I'm spending a lot of this before even going into the video because this is huge. It's absolutely necessary. Hero timing. It used to be you got 2 heroes on this fight. We were doing that for a long time. It works okay, but with corruption being the way it is, I would strongly recommend that you use 1 hero and that you pop it after you kill second Psychus, because the stretch of time after you kill second Psychus and before you have to start doing the anguish dance at phase 2 is the most consistent damage that you'll ever get onto the Zoth. So that hero timing is awesome. You'll end up killing this. I don't know. I think our kill time's like just under 12 minutes or something. It's for a first kill. The video is actually from our re-kill because I missed the first kill because I was on a business trip. So it's much better with that hero timing. I would not do hero at any other points in the fight because you really need to balance all of your DPS in this fight a tremendous amount. So let's get into the actual video and we'll talk about it. I know Mage Combust is huge on this fight. Our mages combust on the pole, then about the 2 minute and 10 second mark, which lines up with first Psychus downstairs for Callow, who's down there, and then on cooldown when it makes sense, where they can get all their dancing moves in there. And then there's lots of other things, but all of this really comes down to consistency. So you want to be consistent in this fight as much as possible. So here we go. Starting off in the fight, I have weak auras that show group sanity, and then a couple other ones. Corruptor interrupts are huge because if the cast gets off, it'll burn a bunch of sanity from the target. You'll see here that, these first bashes, even without hero, they meld. We get the first paranoia. This paranoia, just be calm. The damage that it does to you nowadays is not huge. You just want to be calm and do not bulldoze over other pairs or other groups. So here the groups are going to split. We're going to go to the left and to the right. I'm going to be going on the right side. A basher is going to spawn here past the X marker. Want to prioritize the bashers and the corruptors. If you have warlocks, they should be slapping the spike tentacles because those do a significant amount of damage. We did have assigned interrupts to the corruptors that kind of worked themselves out organically as we prog, but then we kind of said, okay, well, these are the people we actually want doing this. Now, right here, that was the timing for group 1 to go down for Psychus 1. I actually have another point of view, so I will show Psychus 1, but I'm going to go all the way through to the first burn before we get and do Psychus 1. So this is, right now we're going to go into top group, top realm during Psychus 1. So you see spikes are getting killed off by our warlocks. And we're getting set up to do our Paranoia Mind Grasp dance. So you'll get 1 basher here first, have a Corruptor Tentacle, need to interrupt. Obviously, you get used to this. I've done this now 200 times, this exact same dance, and I stand in just about identical spots for all this. So I do use Earth Elemental here. You saw a pretty useless Wind Rush earlier. I just use it there because there's really not another spot to use it prior to. So Earth Elemental went out to help control the psychophages. You'll see right now, I'll show it right here. Okay, so these 2 neurons are banished. This neuron out here is feared. There's a couple that are stunned. The hunters figured out how the timing to stun them. It's a little tricky. You have to do it right as it spawns, but before it starts casting, and then it won't even grow a puddle. And all the way back here, the 3 hunter traps. Hunters are huge on this fight. But these are all assignments, and then you saw me killing off this one. There's another one back in this direction behind my portrait that we're also killing off. So keep going. Paranoia, again, take your time. Don't panic with this thing. Clean movement without paranoia. You have so much time here. And then get in here, get nice and tacked. You want 2 rows maximum but you actually have quite a bit of spot, yeah, quite a bit of space to do this. Stun psychophages, interrupt psychophages, knock psychophages, anything. Don't prioritize DPSing them, and watch out when they explode. And when they die, they leave a little swirly underneath themselves when they die. So we're doing the final basher here. This is the second basher for the top group. Big spikes of damage here going out. We actually have 3 healers up here. Our Holy Paladin went downstairs, and solo heals Psychus 1. So big interrupts here. You know, throw down a little bit of AoE, but you want to make sure that this basher goes down, as well as this corruptor. And Psychus is going to be dying here shortly. So he just died there. We're going to go ahead and we're going to take a look at Psychus 1. Okay, so here we are. We're looking at a hunter point of view. They just killed the second basher again in that first half, and Mindgate 1 is about to go down, so they're going to go down for first Psychus. Now again, this is a pre-planned route. It's very important that your tank gets out of this quickly so that Psychus goes in the correct direction. So you can see him pre-targeting. Psychophages are going to be controlled as much as possible. All right, and then the Psychus needs to go onto these synapses as quick as possible. Now, it's extremely important in this phase and in Psychus 2 that you're killing the exposed synapses on time. Like, Psychus should never really stop moving. He should only ever kind of stutter step. With Cataclysmic Flames, you want to be in an area where you're not carpet bombing basically a spot ahead of the team, right? Like, so you want to be kind of out of the way of the big melee train, because Psychus 1 is the one that you should stack a little bit more heavily with melee. And you can see that kind of in our guide document, which I'll link rather than me talking about it, but we do have a lot more melee on Psychus 1 because we're a lot friendlier to melee than Psychus 2. So interrupts downstairs for Psychus. If you have a lot of short CD interrupts, you should be using those as much as possible. So Psychus now has 7 stacks, it looks like. Oh, no, that's something. Has...
I'll get 2 here.
I've always been 2 here.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah. Okay, there he goes. Seven stacks just got on Psychus. At this point, the Mage Bust is really doing a lot of the work. So they kill it here, get back to their bodies, come back up top, and let me switch back to my point of view here. So now we're back, pretty much right where I left off. We're all stacking on Star, and this is going to be the first N'Zoth burn. So Psychus 1 just died. Psychus group just came in. They kind of came out right around where Star was. They come in here, and we're going to be burning as best as we can. This used to be where the first hero overlap was. Right here you saw we have 2 healer necks assigned, so Elsie and Cutting both use their necks right there. Gets everybody real close to 100 sanity. Big thing here, the group that just came up from the bottom, they don't have to get back up to 100 sanity, but anybody that's going down underneath, they should be hovering about 80 to 100. Getting out of N'Zoth burn and into these bashers as quick as possible is extremely important. So right here you see that we were kind of in the way for a paranoia pair. So we wanted to shift out of that. So again, keep your head with paranoia. Don't bulldoze over other people. Take your time. The damage isn't huge. This wind rush helps a lot because we want to be getting to these bashers and these corruptors as soon as possible. So bashers need to die. Interrupts need to happen. The more interrupts that you get in this phase that you get successfully, I mean, you shouldn't miss any. This is one place where missing interrupts on corrupted mind, it shouldn't happen. You have to get them, otherwise it's going to put you behind on sanity. That's going to catch up with you at some point in the fight. So here we go. We're going down for Psychus 2. Big thing here for Psychus 2 is you're going to want this lockgate that we're going to take. So the lockgate's going to get us into the best starting position here. Remember, you take damage in this phase at certain points when you're taking movement, when you have a lot of movement. So gathering up psychophages with a warrior tank is a little bit more difficult, so I have to do some sweet soccer moves with knockbacks to get them into his range. But after that, they're pretty gathered up and moving. The first Anguish drop in Psychus 2 is extremely important, otherwise it'll screw you over. So you have to kill that first synapse instantly, as soon as Psychus gets there. Maybe not even all the way to it, just close enough to where he is. So want to be moving this along, killing synapses as we're going, slowing psychophages, stunning them as much as you can, and letting the DPS classes kind of do work. So as an LE shaman here, I'm kind of screwed. My biggest job here is honestly just doing interrupts, and you know, slowing, controlling psychophages a little bit, and then funneling boss a little bit at this point, I'm kind of switching more to the boss, and you'll see I'm holding Fire Elemental, I'm holding cooldowns because we have assigned cooldowns for Psychus to melt them down while still maintaining as many cooldowns as we can for the upcoming burn. Because the upcoming burn here is going to be with Hero. So, Hero, second pots, all that stuff. So, Psychus 2 is actually going to go down there. I'm going to switch back one more time and show you the top part point of view for Psychus 2, and then that'll be the end of part 1. Okay, so we're picking this up right here, just as Mindgate 2 opens, so just opened here. Again, we're looking at Hunter's POV. He's going to be on the top realm because he was in Psychus 1. So we're going to be finishing off this Corruptor and getting back into their spots. You should be able to see them kill second Basher, and then you should also be able to see what they can do with the stuns as they move along here. So they're going to spread into their spots. He pre-places his trap because he knows exactly where that stuff's going to spawn. This fight is so consistent and so rhythmic. You know exactly what's going to happen. So right here, he's standing right near the neuron that he's going to be stunning.
What? This is for.
The fuck? We're really fast on those synapses.
Alright, so they're killing, they kill a bunch more neurons than we do in the first one, but you still got traps. And they spread in a little bit different way. Their psychophages are controlled in a different way because they don't have Earthy kind of doing it off on his own. So they get through much tighter group than ours is for Psychus 1 up top, but well done. And then they're moving on to kill the second Basher right as we're about to get into the second burn phase. Now, what I'm going to do for this video is I'm splitting it into 2 parts because this is already going to be like almost 20 minutes long for just part 1. And I'm going to do part 2, which hopefully is shorter, but part 2 is going to focus on the dance in phase 2. So right here we just killed second Psychus, and we're all going to stack on Diamond, which will be on the south end of the room. And the rest of this will be in part 2, which will be linked here shortly. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you right here in part 2.